Welcome to Dearly Departed Online. I'm Scott Michaels, the creator of Dearly Departed Tours and findadeath.com. This is my venture into audio internet. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was pronounced dead on August 16, 1977 at Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. His death made headlines around the world and delivered this man from music legend to almost saintly status. Elvis's body was brought back to Graceland from the Baptist Hospital and laid out for viewing in the main living room of Graceland. One by one, people filed past his casket to pay their respects to the king, including Sammy Davis Jr., Anne Margaret, and Caroline Kennedy. Thousands of fans and tourists stood in line for hours, waiting to be ushered through the front doors of the mansion for a chance to say their own personal goodbye to the king of rock and roll. Because of a bizarre and tragic event that we'll talk about today, 3 young women wouldn't make it through the gates that day, and 2 of them wouldn't make it home alive. Today I'm speaking with the survivor, Tammy Baiter. Tammy has written a book about the experience titled Tragic Night Between Life and Death, A Second Chance at Life. So I welcome Tammy Baiter. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to speak to me today. So is it true that you share Elvis's birthday?
Yes, I do. How
interesting is that? So were you a fan from when you were very, very young?
Yeah, I grew up listening to him. It's all the music my mom played, but, not of Elvis.
So how old were you in 1977?
I was 17.
17. And had you ever seen Elvis perform live or ever seen him in person?
I'd never seen him perform live. All I'd seen was on TV.
Okay, and now, where were you living in 1977?
With my grandma and grandpa.
Were you living in Tennessee?
No, I was in West Terre Haute, Indiana.
Okay, so how long of a distance is between the two places?
It was about 800 miles, something like that.
Wow.
8-hour drive at that time.
So, when you heard that Elvis has died, you immediately, you're going to Graceland. That's what you decided.
Yeah, after I let my sister know that he'd passed away, she couldn't believe it, and I wanted to go to Memphis.
Was it just something like you just hopped in the car, or was there something that you had to, how did you prepare for your trip?
Well, when I asked my sister, when I told her that Elvis had died, she didn't believe me, but when she finally heard it for herself on TV, they confirmed it, I said, let's go to Memphis, and she said, I can't. She said, I ain't got the money. Nobody had it. She said, I don't get paid until Friday. So it's getting the money to go.
Okay, so you borrowed money just because you had to be there.
The next morning is when they announced in advance being able to get in to view him. And I told my sister, and she said, I still don't have the money. So there's nobody to borrow the money from. So I went out and I wrote a bunch of checks, and, so we could get the money to go. But she said, I'll put it in the bank as soon as we get back on her payday.
Well, that was back when you still had a couple of days leeway. I've done that many times where I've floated a couple of checks till payday. It's just what we did back then, isn't it?
Well, like I said, she was going to put it right in the bank, as soon as she got back home.
So you said it was about an 8-hour road trip?
Mm-hmm. 8 and a half, I think, at that time, just driving, 55, something like that. It just depended.
Sure. And so when you first got to Graceland, there were probably a lot of people lined up already.
When we got there, first time we bypassed, my sister drove right by it, and I said, turn around and go back, So she goes back and she parks down at the very tip where it starts to drive in, that pull-in area. Mm-hmm. And we parked the car right there. But there was not one soul out in front of the brick wall, the stone wall. There wasn't one person out there, and we walked clear up to the gates.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
One person out there at all. The people were on the other side of the road, but there's nobody on the side of Grace.
How long of a wait were you anticipating there being until you got through the gates?
We got there, from the time we left, it was around 4 o'clock in the evening on the 17th. Mm-hmm. And we arrived there, it was after midnight on the 18th.
Okay. And so they had stopped the visits at that point?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Quite a while before that. That's why my sister wanted to turn around and go back home.
I see.
By Memphis.
So, but there was still going to be a point where you had where the hearse would go by with Elvis, so you could.
True.
Okay, so that's probably why people were waiting. But there were a lot of people still there across the street, just kind of being around each other, weren't they? I mean, Did you talk to a lot of people, and was there just
Not really.
No.
Everybody was, real good. They, like telling stories. Everybody was real good and loving and everything like that. There wasn't anybody that was harsh or anything like that. Everybody was real peaceful and just kind of just waiting. Like I say, though they were talking, talking with each other and stuff like that. But at the time, I got out of the car. I seen a couple girls walking towards me from across the way, and I just stood there and waited for them. And they walked up to me and just started talking like those old friends.
And this was Juanita Johnson and Alice Hovitar?
Yeah, Alice was one that was doing all the talking.
Uh-huh. And they were there for the same reason, basically, because everyone felt the need to be there.
They come, whenever they walked up to me, they said, after we got introduced, Alice said, we're not Elvis fans. We just come to check out the excitement.
So you weren't lined up in front of Graceland, but you were just kind of hanging out across from Graceland when the accident happened.
Right, like I said, the girls talked to me a few minutes, we kind of laughed and stuff and carried on, talked a few minutes, and they went their way, and I went to check, see if they got the car locked up yet. And I told my little 6-year-old cousin, I said, Jenny, you wait right here for your mom, because my aunt had just told me, keep Jenny with you. She's 6 years old. And I said, sure, but, I had the camera and stuff, and I was going to go anyway. And she waited there. Which is unusual, for somebody who was real close anyway. But she did wait there, and I headed towards the boulevard. And when I got out there so far, I noticed the girls were standing out there on the road, too. They were talking to police officers. So I went on out there to where they were, the same two that I had just met, Alice and Joanna. I was going to take pictures of Graceland, because, see, when we first got there, my battery was dead. That's the reason we left and went back down the road towards Memphis. And I could describe it to you where we turned and everything. But anyway, we come back and we parked across from Graceland that time. And I had the batteries in the camera. It was ready to take pictures. And that's what I went to do, But I got talking with the girls. We asked Officer Greenwood, which I didn't know his name at that time. But anyway, it was Officer Greenwood that was standing out there. We asked him if it would be okay for us to stand out there. And he said, yeah. We'd be fine. Yeah, but then when the white car flew by us like it did, he told us we need to get out of the road. Just so much happened in a matter of minutes there. Where he went down, he turned the car around, comes back, and,
So this guy, the driver, Treatise Wheeler, you're talking about him.
Yes.
So he did a drive-by one time.
Yes.
And turned around.
Plus, he'd been there 6 hours before that, I was told by another individual, she's a witness to it. He'd been there 6 hours before that, and they shoot him off. They just told him to go away. They ran him off. So he turned around and come back that night. But she'd made a phone call, I guess, and he told them what he was going to do.
You mean it was intentional?
Yes.
So he was going to drive into the crowd?
Yeah. See, when he called, he said Elvis was no good. He said when he was going to run down, he's going to run the gates, or he was going to run down some fans. Well, he didn't run the gates, and he just ran down the fans.
So it wasn't just a stupid drunk driving thing. He intended to go out and hurt people.
Right.
Huh. And
in his mind.
So can you explain, when he turned around, then what exactly do you remember happening?
Well, okay, when he turned around and stuff like that, there we're standing, and the officer's telling us, the way he just drove by, that we better get out of the road after all, So anyways, and I'm starting to move a little bit, but once he starts roaring up his engine, stuff like that, he's sitting still, roaring that engine. And I've already started moving away from him. Because we've been told to get out of the road. And I didn't get that far. But anyway, I heard the two thumps, the squealing of the tires, and everything. Anything like that would grab somebody's attention, And I turned around. When I heard the thump, I turned, and I threw my hands up like, don't hit me, he had me.
And he dragged you for quite a distance, didn't he?
See, when he rode Alice out from under the car, she's blonde head, tall, slender. She's about a head taller than me, I think. And Joanna was just a little, I was maybe just a little taller than her, but, you know, I thought maybe it's because of her weight, because she wasn't skinny or anything like that, but she's probably about like me, just a little bit more weight on her. But anyway, she got caught on the undercarriage. But anyway, when he hit me, he flipped me up in the air. I come down. Luckily, the way I stand is one thing saved my life. When I turned around and faced him, because it threw my legs out from under me, instead put me on my face like it did the other girls. When I come down, I bounced off, you know, the windshield and stuff like that, cracked, and I went up there and come down on his antenna.
Wow.
It went into my right leg, you know, and tore the muscle up. That's what he was carrying me about 20 feet on the side of the car, where they said he drugged me. 20 feet. It was on the side of the car, but I wasn't touching the ground.
I see.
was just hanging.
You were hanging off of the aerial, really, the antenna.
Right, there you go.
Wow. So now you probably don't remember this because you were injured, but so he, as I've read in articles and in your book, he tried to flee the scene.
Yeah.
And how did they stop him?
They was on foot chase. Plus, see, whenever he stopped there at the light, he had a police officer behind him from where he'd been driving, I guess. He already got the attention of the police officer. And they stopped. They got out, and they was on foot. The car wasn't in pursuit then. They was on foot after the impacts of us girls. There's about, it was like 15 cops or something like that. I don't know exactly how many. But all of them was on foot after him. Because, see, the impact of each person like that, it slowed the car down.
Sure.
Like I said, he's still dragging Joanna. She's attached to the undercarriage of the front of the car.
Wow. And so he got out of the car, and the crowd, understandably, was yelling, "Lynch him!" And the police arrested him, and took him away.
First taken to the South Hospital, and they didn't have enough equipment. My heart stopped twice already. After they got it going again, and they had me stabilized, they shipped me to Methodist Central on Union Avenue.
You were in the same ambulance as Elvis?
Yeah.
In the same gurney?
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
One thing they said, the ambulance driver told me the man that picked me up, he said he's on the same gurney, same ambulance. The only thing was different was the sheets.
How interesting. So you arrived at the hospital. Did they perform surgery right away? I mean, what kind of injuries did you have? You were comatose at that point, weren't you?
Yeah, comatose.
And what kind of injuries did you have then?
Well, my pelvis had been broken in 4 places. They said shattered at the time. I had scrapes, scratches. My ear was ripped. I had a lot of head trauma. And besides the muscle being tore up, a big hunk out of my muscle on my leg. But I was in a coma. I woke up a couple times. I don't really remember any of it. Like, I begged my mom to help me. Went back into deep coma. And that's when they operated, like, the next day. I think that was the 27th of August.
So you came out of the coma, and then you started your recuperation. You had many surgeries after that, as I understand it. And you were, while you were recuperating in the hospital in Memphis, did any of the Presley people contact you?
Well, Charlie Hodge had been there, come check on me and stuff while I was in the coma.
Who was Charlie Hodge?
Charlie Hodge, that was the one that always put the scars on Elvis. Elvis's good friend on stage.
Okay.
Now, he come there, and I got to know him after I was released. But anyway, and then Elvis's dad called my dad. And when he called, he said he had his Sandy Miller, is his girlfriend, personal secretary and nurse. He had her say it was a doctor calling so that he could get hold of my dad because of too much media. And they apologized, but he talked to my dad and asked if there's anything they could do, and they said pray. And he said, we're already doing that. And then he said, I'll be calling back. And on the 14th of September, I come out of coma on the 14th, he called me, And on the 16th, 1 month from the day of Elvis's death, he was in the hospital and spent the evening with me.
Sound very, very nice. And the people, the media really embraced you, didn't they? And the city of Memphis embraced you.
Yeah, they were really good to me.
There was somebody that showed up in the hospital room, and I wasn't quite sure who he was, but you said he dropped off a copy of Elvis's will.
I don't know exactly who that was. Just some man knocked on the door, this right before Elvis's dad got there. He said it was, I think you might need this. Something like that. I thought, what is that? And Mom said, it's Elvis's last will and testament. I said, what do you expect? And so she put it in the drawer, like I was going to sue somebody or something.
And that was right before Vernon came to visit you, wasn't it?
Right. And, crazy thing was, nobody asked us to come there. We come there on our own. There's somebody's bringing me something like that thinking I'm going to sue them or something.
Wow. Yeah, it's a different time, though. You know what I mean? Nowadays, they wouldn't think twice about suing. But, yeah, ultimately you put yourself in that situation. Unfortunately, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't the Presleys' fault. But that nowadays is such a different thing. They find a way to blame the people with the money. Mm-hmm. It's just the way things work. So you were released. It was big news, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And even the mayor gave you a key to the city?
Yeah, I had a proclamation from the governor. I had a key to the city. It was the mayor's assistant, Dick Hackett, that was standing at the end of the ambulance. He presented me with these awards. Key to the city, and then make me honorary citizen of Memphis, and the proclamation from the governor of Tennessee.
Wow, and then was it the Presleys that provided a plane for you to get home?
Well, now when Elvis's dad, Vernon, was in the room with me, and Mr. Presley, he asked my mom, he said, did you get a paper like this? And she said no, so she read it, and it was for air ambulance. And she went out and talked to the doctor, and he said no, too much cabin pressure after having brain surgery.
Oh, so you didn't take the plane home?
No.
Okay.
So he said, we'll take care of it. And I went home in a brand new Cadillac ambulance.
That'll make an 8-hour trip a little bit nicer. But you had to go back quite often to Memphis, didn't you, for checkups and?
Once a month I had to see the doctor.
So you had to drive 16 hours a month to go and see a doctor. I mean, how long did you have to drive to get to Memphis, I guess is what I'm curious about, every month?
Probably about 9 hours, something like that. Just depending on the way you went, I guess.
But so they wouldn't. What I can't quite grasp is why didn't you have a doctor closer to home?
Well, now if there's times that I couldn't make it in there, like a couple times there in the winter months. I think it was January, January and February, maybe then 2 months. It might be the only two. I went to Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and there's a doctor I seen there, unless it's one of the doctors from Memphis. I don't know. It's been so long, but I know I went there a couple times. And all the other times was in Memphis, so they didn't have me see anybody else other than come see them.
I see. So Mr. Presley maintained contact with you, didn't he?
Yeah.
And you became friends with him?
Yeah, I was close to him. I thought the world of him. I went over to his house on Dolan. I seen him like before the benefit concert and different things like that. That's where I met Vester, was over at his house on Dolan. I was there with a friend of Elvis's. His name is Philip Baroni. Mm-hmm. And he's the one that introduced me to Vester, because Vester didn't know who it was.
And who's Vester?
His Uncle Vester.
Oh, okay.
But he'd never met me until then. And he's with his wife. I think Cletus was her name, something like that. I ain't sure. Mm-hmm. That was Elvis's mom's, Gladys' sister.
You'd go for your monthly checkups, and quite often, usually, you'd have a nice visit with Vernon Presley. Mm-hmm. And he actually took you to Elvis's grave yourself, didn't he?
See, he talked to me in the hospital about going with me to the mausoleum. Mm-hmm. Once I got out and stuff, and then he was always working in the office or something, but I used to go to the grave before me to the mausoleum.
But then they ended up having to move Elvis's body.
They moved him out to Graceland. But now he mentioned that may happen at the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so it was before they moved him.
It was before, yeah. See, in the hospital, he mentioned, they may move him to Graceland and build a mausoleum or something for him there.
Yeah.
But at that time, that happened. But he was talking to me about when I got out, where I could go to the grave. He'd go with me. But now Alstrada, Elvis's one bodyguard. Well, he was here, over his clothing or something like that, his outfits. He's the one that showed me where Elvis had been entombed, in the mausoleum.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed us exactly where it was.
Okay. So, yeah, some people may not know that Elvis, there was an attempt to steal Elvis's body and hold him for ransom. So Vernon decided to take him and Elvis's mom and brother and take them to Graceland for, I guess they got permission to make the estate into a cemetery. And
well, you think about it, they had been damaging her angel.
Mm-hmm.
Doing things and trying to tear it up, It was, stupid out people's part doing something like that,
Mm-hmm.
But, at least you got Elvis where he was safe.
Do you, now, the trial of Treatise Wheeling, do you remember it? Did you have to go back to Memphis for that?
No, I was there the day that he'd been sentenced, because I'd had my one leg operation, my first leg operation. And that was in May. Let me see, May. I think it was May 9th or something like that, because it's in the paper. But it talks about where he was tried. But see, they waited for over a year, where he'd been going to court and stuff, actually, for the whole thing to go through. Because he never got nothing from me. All I think he was tried for was the 2 counts, second-degree murder.
So nothing for injuries, nothing for attempted murder.
Mm-mm.
How strange.
Yeah.
And he was given what kind of a sentence?
He was given, they said 20 years, do 10. But the thing was, it's the first time actually being sentenced, so the 10 was cut in half. You know what I mean? And then if he was a good boy, for your speech, but, if he's good, on good behavior, that 5 years, that 10 that's cut in half, actually sentencing him. He only did 2.5 years.
Wow.
For 2 counts of murder.
That's that's crazy.
Intentional.
I had no idea that he had already done a drive-by. I thought it was just something he just happened to be driving down the street and lost control. I didn't know that it was intentional.
Yeah, see, he lived he lived very far from Graceland at that. Because we looked it up on my daughter and me looked it up, and I think it's like almost 2 miles or something like that.
That was interesting because you published in your book the actual incident or accident report, and that's a fascinating document. I thought that was a really interesting addition to the book. Have you ever been in touch with any Juanita or Alice's family?
Okay, now as for Joanna Johnson, her mother, I know she's passed away. As for any other of Joanna's family, no. Now, as for Alice, I'm very close to her sister, Rosemary Hovitar. I think her name is Rosemary Tucker. Hovitar Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I'm her little sister. That's what she calls me now.
Oh, how nice.
And she says, I love you with all my heart, But, yeah, we keep in touch.
And how about any of the other people that were in front of Graceland at that time?
There's Susan Wahlberg. She one of the witnesses. She was one of the eyewitnesses. And then Kathy B. is another lady that was there.
So people have really shown a lot of love to you, haven't they?
Yeah, they really have.
And it's nice that you have people that were there that night that understand what you went through.
Oh, yeah. I'm thankful, the fact that I'm alive. I was blessed with 2 daughters. The doctor didn't know for sure if that would even happen. But I got lucky. God had a purpose for me,
You did. And just like your book says, it's a second chance at life. You had, you were very fortunate. You went through hell, but you came out of it.
if I could take anything back, it would be that the other two girls, I wouldn't trade anything that I went through. But as for the other two girls losing their lives, I wouldn't want that to happen. That's one thing I'd take to stop from happening, that I'd go through what I did. It was very special, the time that I had with Elvis's dad.
I have to ask you a question about something that I found really curious. One of the people that helped you that night, his name was Donald Baiter. What happened with him? I mean, he was a little bit obsessed with you, wasn't he?
Yeah, he thought I should marry him after that. And I was like, huh?
How long after the accident did he get in touch with you?
Well, he kind of kept in touch with Mom during the whole thing, and I think it was right after.
And
I think while I was in the hospital or something. I'm not exact on that part there, but I know he thought I should marry him. And I don't remember exactly how we finally come face to face. It had to be in Memphis, where he had approached me, you know what I mean? And then on my first leg operation, he was harassing me on the phone. And by that time, I'd already learned, I wasn't about to marry the man, and this is months later, but because Mr. Press couldn't get through to me, and I kind of got chewed for that. When he got through, he wanted to know who'd been on the phone, and I explained the situation to him, and he was okay with it. But he had been harassed himself that day, Mr. Presley had.
By the same guy?
No.
Oh, okay.
Joanna's family, I wanted him to pay for the funerals.
Oh.
He would confide in me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this was a constant thing, and, he'd be upset about it. And he'd tell me, they called him before he even got his gate closed at home.
Okay.
And things like that.
Right.
Alice's family, didn't do that. It was the other family. All I know, how he's upset, though.
So Mr. Baiter, you finally got rid of him.
Yeah, now, later, I don't know, I've got the paperwork on it. Now, he was put to death, was last year before last, something like that.
He was executed?
Yes.
And why was he executed?
He killed a little girl in 85.
So this is a guy that was obsessed with you, wanted to marry you.
He said, why would he kill a little girl when he helped me? And he's put my name out there, like he done so much for me. And I said, all he done was got his picture taken. He wasn't a paramedic or anything. He just had his hand on my knee in the pictures. He even sent a marshal to my house to find me, to ask the governor for a pardon for him. I said, what did he do? And he said, well, I don't know. Well, of course he knew, but he wasn't going to tell me. Well, when I called him, I said, I looked it up, I found what he did. I said, I wouldn't help him for nothing. I got kids of my own, grandbabies. For him to kill a little girl.
That's crazy. Wow, and he's gone. He's dead now.
Yeah.
Wow.
He finally was sentenced, and I guess, it was a relief to the family after all the years they waited because he'd been put on death row all the years.
That's really crazy.
Now, because, see, I didn't know anything about it until whenever that marshal popped up my house showing a badge at me, and I'm thinking, okay. And then he starts asking me questions, and I thought.
So tell me about your life after the accident. You mentioned you have a couple of babies and a grandchild.
Yeah, I've got 8 grandkids. There's 3 boys and 5 girls.
That's a heck of a house full, huh? Your holidays must be wonderful.
Oh, yeah, they are.
You've probably become sort of a celebrity in the Elvis Presley world. Is that right? Would that be correct?
Whenever somebody hears my name or something like that, and I'm down there, yeah.
And you go to Elvis events?
Yeah, I have. Let me see. It's been years since I got a chance to go back until finally I was able to go back. Last 3 years I've been there. Yeah, this will be like the 3rd time I'll be going back this next year, but I was there this year, last year, and the year before. But it was just so hard, you know, with kids growing up and stuff.
So you do well. That's nice that you can go back and it's just it's such a horrible thing you went through, but it's so interesting and so probably nice that a lot of people know what you went through. You know, sometimes when people have something bad happen to them, it only happens to them, and they have no one that can really relate to them, you know, what they went through. But you have just, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people that probably know exactly what you went through.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of fortunate. I think that something like that will never get forgotten. Well, when I spoke to you a couple of months ago, you were going back to Memphis for a visit, and you mentioned the possibility of meeting Treatise Wheeler. Did that happen?
No, it didn't happen. I tried everything I could. I was told even to go on Ancestor.com and I could find out where he was. At one time, I had called and spoken to his mother. I think her name is Olivia. I spoke to her, and I don't know if she's still alive. The number, it went on vacation, like, for a good while, and then I think it's totally disconnected. But by the map and stuff, it shows, like, the properties are gone where he had lived.
Oh, they've been destroyed?
Yeah, where they're building some kind of a new thing. So I think what happened is the property was bought out from under him. But there's a couple of Wheelers that's listed, but when I've called, you know, nobody knows him or ain't going to say.
I see. Yeah, that's.
I would love to meet him, just ask him, you know, how do you sleep? You know, does it bother you? You know, things I wonder about. You know, like I said, I'm no judge, no jury. I'm not God. He has to face God one day for his wrongs. So, you know, that's just the way it is.
Well, listen, Tammy. Now, when people want to, when someone wants to buy your book, how do they do that?
Okay, I've got Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
They can go through the Facebook account, or they could write me at my home address.
Well, why don't we stick with Facebook, and then so it's under Tammy Baiter at Facebook, right? Tammy Baiter, and they can contact you directly on your page, and you get the book through the internet. I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Right.
And I thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. I want to ask you two quick questions, though, before we go. What's your favorite Elvis song?
Kentucky Rain.
Kentucky Rain. Okay, and one other thing, and this is silly. What do you think about the rumors about Elvis being alive?
That's, well, I'll tell you what. If it was, I think it'd be fantastic. It'd be a blessing, you know. I don't know. I wish it was. I wish it could be true, but I don't think it is.
Right.
I thought for a long time, you know, the other two, neither one of the other girls was born on that same day, okay? But God chose me to be the one to live, born January the 8th. You know what I mean? I was putting the same elements as him. My heart stopped twice. There's a reason for that, a message that God's given to the people, but what is that message? You know what I mean? It kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know.
All right. Well, Tammy, again, people can contact you on Facebook, Tammy Baiter. And the book, again, is called Tragic Night Between Life and Death, A Second Chance at Life. And thank you again, Tammy, for spending time with me. And I wish you all the very best.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Bye-bye.